This is the face the world has been looking at for 30 years. The face of Prehistory 39, most famous man. Light skin. Dark, thick hair. Mediterranean features. A man who looks about 45, reasonably well preserved for someone who in Stack 39's been dead for 5,300 years. The problem is that this face is, in part, an invention. In August 2023, the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology and Uric Research published the most complete and accurate genetic analysis ever conducted on Psi. And what they found undid, in a single study, decades of visual reconstructions. The Iceman had considerably darker skin than any reconstruction had ever shown, darker than modern Sicilians, and almost certainly, when he died, he was bald. Act 1. The man in the ice on September 19th, 1991, two German hikers named Helmut and Erika Simon were walking along a mountain pass in the Stahl Alps at over 3,000 metres elevation on the border between Austria and Italy. They saw something dark sticking out of the ice. At first they thought it might be rubbish, or the remains of some recent mountain accident. When they alerted the authorities and rescuers arrived, the extraction was, to put it gently, not careful. For hours, a group of men with picks, poles, and at one point a pneumatic drill tried to free the body from the ice that had preserved it for 5 millennia. In the process, they fractured his hip, damaged his left arm, caused him to lose part of his equipment, and scratched and wounded the body at several points. It was, according to the archaeologists who arrived afterward, one of the most chaotic extractions of a prehistoric find in modern history. What remained was equally extraordinary. Z is approximately 5,300 years old. He is the oldest mummy ever found with intact soft tissue, not just bones, but skin, organs, stomach contents, clothing, and complete equipment, including a copper axe that marks him as a member of the elite in his era. His body, preserved by the ice, allowed us to do something without precedent in prehistoric archaeology, analyse, in detail, the real life of a late Neolithic European. But for years, what we knew about his physical appearance rested on a shakier foundation than it seemed. Act 2. What we thought we knew, and why it was wrong in 2012, Tz and NAC39, genome was sequenced for the first time. It was a historic milestone, the first time a mummy and NAC39's genome had ever been sequenced. The results generated headlines worldwide and a flood of follow-up studies. Among the conclusions of that first analysis, Tz had European hunter-gatherer ancestry, and also traces of ancestry from the Eastern European steppes. Working from that genetic base, researchers and the artists tasked with visual reconstructions spent years giving him a face. The result was the man the world knows, fair complexion, dark and full hair, southern European features. The problem, which took years to detect, was in the sample itself. Ancient Dina is extraordinarily fragile. Over thousands of years of preservation, even in ice, Dina chains fragment, degrade, mix with microorganisms, and are susceptible to contamination from the very hands of the scientists handling them. In 2012, sequencing technology WASN and #39. T precise enough to reliably detect and remove that contamination. And TC and #39 sample had been contaminated with modern Dina. That means some of the 2012 results, specifically the presence of European hunter-gatherer ancestry and Eastern steppe ancestry, WASN and #39, TTC and #39's Dina at all. It was the Dina of someone who had touched him. Act 3. The analysis that changed everything in 2022. The team of Kawang and Johannes Krause from the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology and Uric Research in Bolzano decided to redo the genetic analysis from scratch. They had two advantages that didn't and hashtag 39 exist in 2012. First, high-coverage sequencing technology, capable of reading the genome with exponentially greater precision, detecting and eliminating contaminating sequences far more effectively. Second, since 2012, hundreds of prehistoric European genomes had been sequenced. They could now compare Otzi not just with modern populations, but with his real contemporaries, men and women who lived at the same time as him. The results, published in Cell Genomics on August 16, 2023, were decisive. All the European hunter-gatherer ancestry that appeared in the 2012 analysis disappeared. It was contamination. All the Eastern European steppe ancestry also disappeared. Also contamination. What remained was something unexpected even for the researchers themselves. Otzi had a higher proportion of Anatolian farmer ancestry than any other contemporary European in the genetic record. The Iceman has more genes in common with early Anatolian farmers than any of his known European contemporaries. Wang et al. Cell Genomics, August 16, 2023, that means Otzi wasn't an hashtag 39, the mixed ancestry, multi-lineage European the 2012 study suggested. He was, genetically, one of the purest representatives of the agricultural populations that had arrived in Europe from Southwest Asia thousands of years earlier. His lineage was remarkably isolated. He had had almost no genetic contact with the hunter-gatherers that still existed in some parts of Europe at that time. And then came the two revelations that changed the face the world had known. First, skin pigmentation genetic markers revealed that Otzi had considerably more melanin than any previous reconstruction had assumed. Darker than modern Sicilians, already among the darkest-skinned people in Europe. He wasn't an hashtag 39, the fair-skinned man of the reconstructions. Physically, he was considerably darker. Second, genetic markers associated with male pattern baldness were present. Given his age at death, between 40 and 45, and the absence of visible hair on the mummy, researchers concluded that Otzi was likely bald, or nearly bald when he died. The irony is that the actual mummy, blackened and leathery from 5 millennia of preservation, looked more like the real Otzi than all the reconstructions we had made over 30 years. We had spent decades imagining a man who didn't act 39 exist. The real man had been right in front of us the whole time. Act 4, 19 living men who don and hashtag 39, know but they're an hashtag 39, one dimension of this study that almost no media outlet covered when the results were published. One that connects a man dead for 5,300 years with people alive today. In the 2012 genetic analysis, confirmed in the new study, the team identified Otzi-Andak39 Y-chromosome haplogroup GL91, a genetic variant passed from father to son, unchanged across generations. In the modern European population, this haplogroup is extremely rare. It appears in less than 1% of European men. But in one specific area of the Austrian Tyrol, it appears at an unusually high frequency. In 2012, researchers identified 19 living men in that region who share exactly the same haplogroup as Otzi. They are and hashtag 39, his direct descendants. 5,000 years is too long to trace a direct father to son line with certainty. But they do share a common ancestor with him, through the same unbroken paternal line. 19 men in the Alps who carry in their Y chromosomes a genetic signature that appeared before writing existed, who no one has told that they share a rare genetic variant with Prehistory and hashtag 39's most famous man, who probably live perfectly ordinary lives, with no idea that in their cells there is a thread connecting directly to someone who crossed those same mountains 5,000 years ago. It doesn't and hashed 39 make them special. It doesn't hashed 39 make them his direct descendants. But it does make them the living men genetically closest to Otzi, anywhere on the planet. The real Otzi. Today, at the South Tyrol Museum of Archaeology in Bolzano, Otzi rests in a refrigerated case kept at -6 degrees Celsius. Through the glass, thousands of visitors a year contemplate his blackened, leathery body. Many of them still picture him with the dark hair and fair complexion from the reconstructions they in Hag 39, V seen in books and documentaries. The reality, now that the Diener has spoken clearly enough, is quite different. The real Otzi was a dark-skinned man, bald or nearly bald, between 40 and 45 years old, with teeth in poor condition, 61 tattoos, a stomach ulcer, lactose intolerance, a genetic predisposition to cardiovascular disease, and an ancestry that tells us he was part of one of the last isolated populations of Anatolian farmers in Europe, a genetic island that time and mixing had already erased across most of the continent, but which in his corner of the Alps had survived almost intact. 30 years of visual reconstructions, some of them extraordinarily detailed and expensive, built on a contaminated sample that gave us the wrong data. It was NAC 39 T bad faith. It was the limit of what science could do at the time, and when science advanced, it had to acknowledge that. That are NAC 39's what makes this case different from just another discovery. It NAC 39's not just that we learned something new about Otzi. It NAC 39's that we learned that what we thought we knew was partly wrong. And that ability to correct itself is precisely what makes science the most honest tool we have for looking into the past. Every bloodline tells the truth, even when it takes 30 years to learn how to listen.